Hi, Kathleen here. We're going to do a quick clone of this tree from Montana, photographed by Teresa Ruby. I have a lot of people ask me about quick clone. I don't do them very often, but if you're in a pinch to do something quickly and give it beautiful color, maybe this will help you in the future. This is not technically a class about color, but we're going to use color to get some of the things that we want using your photo art panel. You can turn this photograph into this by creating different color versions of your clone source image. So let's step over here to File, Quick Clone. And here we have our panel that's popped up. If you don't have your tracing paper toggled, go ahead and click that. Most of the time it comes up automatically. Your opacity of your cover is usually about 50%. You can go ahead and make it 100%. And we want to make sure that our source is the embedded image. So normally when you pop up your quick clone, you're going to come up with in a general panel for cloners. We're not going to use these brushes. I'm going to come to the Oil's Bravura Brushes, and I'm going to choose Rough Oil. I've got the brush rather large, and I'm going to engage my clone color. This will allow you to pick up the color from the photograph and put it up here on our canvas. So you can move right along, and as you see this develop, you can begin to tell where things are at. So I don't just scribble across, I strategically begin to work in these areas. Now you can use any brush you want, but for this class I'm going to use this one. It just has kind of that soft textured look about it. Has kind of an oil painterly look. And I'm just going to cover this canvas. Or you can also use your auto painting if you'd like, but for this class we're going to use this. I lift up and put back down when I know that I'm going to pick up a little bit different color. Try not to run the colors together too much. I know I've got a hillside over here somewhere. Until it starts to pick up the sky, I'm going to kind of stay right in there. So you have a really loose painting. Now, if you were doing an auto painting, the brush would get smaller as you move along. So if you want to tighten up the area, go about half the size that you were, and then begin to work in those areas to start to refine some details. And I'm going to add some other colors over this tree and fill in some of the areas where there are just branches because it's autumn. It was starting to lose its leaves, and I want to give it a little bit fuller look. So just tightening up these little areas and kind of a softness where the tree touches the sky because it's rolling back away from you. So it's okay to have those little soft blurred edges. Try to pick out some of the little, find those little blue areas. Pick out some of the dark along the bottom of some of these plants. I'm squiggling up and down, and then from side to side. And so we have a really nice base to start with on our tree. Let's go to our photo art panel and open it up, and then let's click show source image. So this is gonna pop up, and this is our original image. And what we're gonna do is come over here to the underpainting panel, and I'm going to brighten it just a little bit. And when I do that, this is going to say we're editing the embedded source image, and you're going to say okay. I'm going to give it a little bit of contrast. I'm going to change this hue a little bit because I want some purple in the sky. So I'm going to use this. I'm going to give it some saturation, and I think I will leave that there. And now I'm going to close this out, and when I close this out, it's going to say we're creating a new document. You say okay, and here it is. It's here within your panel, and you can use these to grab your colors off of. So I'm still on clone color. I'm going to enlarge my brush again. I am here on this photograph. I'm going to bring some of that color in. That's at the top. Now, as you look at this lavender, you can see it's done something with your tree. It's brightened it. One of the reasons that works is orange, green, and purple are all secondary colors. They're part of a triad. And when you take two of those or three of those together, they usually add some punch to your painting. This color wheel is the traditional color wheel. Corel Painter only supplies us with an RGB color wheel. But if you're going to learn color and how to blend things together, you really need the artist's true color wheel. And so I keep this in my mixer just so that I can come over here and grab a color and reconfirm the cools and the warm colors. And if I think I need to stay within a warm color, I'll come and choose and make sure that I'm over there, and then come back over here to my color wheel. But everybody knows we have yellow, red, and blue, which is our primary colors. But then you have your secondary colors, which are made from the primaries, which are orange, green, and purple. And then from those, you have, if you take the purple secondary and you mix with the red, then you come up with a tertiary color. So you have that all the way around your color wheel. And if you take and use these in triads and bounce off of one another within a painting, you're usually going to come up with some vibrancies. So now I'm going to come back up here to my panel. I'm going to go to the original one. I'm again going to show source image. And I'm going to take this one, and let's do a brightness again. Say okay, contrast again, and I'm going to change the hue a little bit to kind of these dark oranges, and let's up the saturation a little bit. Come over here to shut this off. We've created a new document, and say okay, and here it is down here for us to use. So now I'm going to take some of these colors, add some of these reds up in the shadow areas. Since you have these beautiful colors that you can usually see on site, but not so much in the photographs. Now I think what I'm going to need is also some blues, because actually this color orange, the opposite of it is a blue. So we've got an orange and then a blue. So let's come up here then to the very top one. Let's again show our source image. And let's take it and change this. Just say okay. And here we have some blues, which we can use in the tree trunk and maybe up here in these little dark areas. And so let's get rid of this You say okay, and then we now have another source image to choose from. So now let's come in here and bring some of these blues in here. As we have shadows here. And let's bring some maybe down in here. And we can also add some of that rust color down in here in our foliage. And it might not even hurt. Let's lower our opacity of our brush and bring some of the reds down in here, oranges. And what that's going to do is warm up our foreground. Warm colors come forward and cool colors recede. So that will help with the depth within the painting. So now we're just going to develop this painting now that we have a lot of resources to choose from. And we may even need to brighten this a little bit and give ourselves one more source to choose from. And that would be some of our lightest yellows. So let's again come over here and show source image. And then come here to, I'm going to brighten it again a little bit. And say okay for changing our image. But I want a lighter color. So let's up that saturation. I don't want it to go too green. Yeah, 1 I think is probably best. Let's up that contrast, and that'll give us a little bit brighter yellow to choose from, and you can see it between these two. You can lighten that value, and that really makes it a pretty yellow. Okay, so let's as I create a new document and say okay. And we have one more source to choose from. And what that's going to help us do is to give at least 3 values on each of these limbs as we paint them in to show depth. So in order for you to have depth in your trees, each of these branches that you paint need to have at least 3 values. So now we have a little bit more, a higher value there, and I'm going to add a little bit of that in here, some of our areas, but we can always go back and add where we need it. And so now that we have all our resources, let's go ahead and paint this painting. So let's choose a new brush. Let's come over here to Cloner's Touch Up, the soft brush. I'm up here on this photograph, and I'm going to bring in a little bit of detail along the edge of my tree. Some of that trunk back in so that I can go back in and paint this. And I'm going to go down here to the blue. I don't want to lose that, so I'm going to bring that in with some blue color. And it's picking up my trunk, which is what I need. Give me some detail. And you bring in places like this, and we're going to paint back over that. And I wanted to pick up some of that, little bit of that detail in the photograph, so I don't lose my details. I'm back over here to the clumpy tapered. I'm back up here to my photograph at the top. Bring in a little bit of detail. Once I get kind of those little details in, I can come back in and paint without the cloner so I know where things are at. So you see how that's coming up, and it needs to be the blue color. So let's run back up here and let's put that in so that it matches the other ones in the shadows. Let's go this bottom one, pull in some of that yellow color there. And we don't want to make this too bright back here. We want enough just to give us some contrast, and then maybe add some right in here. That gives us some color to work with. So as we paint this ourselves, you'll be able to bring those colors in over the top and have a painting without cloning. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and leave this here, and I'm going to close this up, and I'm going to add a new layer. If you wanted to finish the painting off this way with just the cloning brushes, you can do that. Or you can do some things on your own that will add some vibrancy and some pop, just with your own touches. Alright, so I think I'm going to bring up the reference image of the Montana tree, and let me enlarge it once. This down a little bit so I can move this around. And look and see what I've got. Now you see a lot of branches showing through on this side. So I think what I'm going to do is paint that to where it's much fuller and you don't see all the little branches. Now you can see how this branch looks kind of flat down here, but that's just what photographs do. You have to really work hard to get the values, which when you turn on your color wheel, your value scale is along here, the left side of this triangle. So that when you're working in this, let's tap this, you can see the value. This is the color that it's choosing. This is the value of where it's at. So that value falls right in line where this is a vertical. It's going to pick up less sunlight because it is straight up and down, whereas your hillsides, if you look here, let me tap the hillside over here, you can see how that value moved up into this area. So because this is kind of at an angle, whenever you're flat, you can see you pick up here, and I would say probably move right up in that area. And then your sky is going to be in this area. So let's choose a color from our sky. You see it lands in this value. Okay, so we're going to pay attention to that. Let's go back to our rough oil. And let's enlarge this. And now I'm going to take this color. And I want to take the clone color off. And it's a pretty bright area. I'm going to just paint that in. Okay. I don't want to go all the way to this side because I don't want to lose the shadow that's over there. Now I'm going to give this side a little bit of that color also. I'm going to lighten it by moving it to the left so that I can stay within that same value. So, okay, and if I want a more intense color over here on this side, I can do this. But I'm still within that same value. Put a little bit of that color here. but I don't want to lose too much of that. Bring a little bit of that shadow down there. And that's painting. And then you're on your own layer, and should you decide you just want to take that off and start again, you can, and nothing's destroyed here with your base painting. Now I'm going to click in here. This is one of the little shadow areas, and make sure that I'm in the right spot. You can see how dark the value is here, but I'm going to change that color. I'm going to come over here and sample within this area. I'm going to bring the color up to about, I don't know, maybe right in here, and add a little bit here. I'm going to come in here. Painting that limb out. You can leave it in there if you want, but I'm going to paint it out. Tap here, put some of that in here, here. So we're picking out our little, I used to have an art teacher that called them bird holes. Give the little birds a place to fly through. Now I'll go back over here on this side and choose the colors that are out to the side so that there's this progression of lighter area to darker area as you move up. I'm going to grab some of this orange since that's in a shadow, and I'm going to put that right up along the tree trunk right there. And this brush is great because if you bear down you can get a lot of color, or if you lightly stroke across it will blend it right into the next color. All these oil Bravura brushes do that. If you want to choose any of those to paint with, you can. They give you a little bit more of an oil painterly look. I'm going to bring that over in here. Try to keep that cool because this is an area that is in shadow, and shadows are cool. Let's back this off and look at it. You can see how that's beginning to take shape.